This is the first in a series of Lighthouse Talks that Dezeen is staging in partnership with Bentley, and it's part of a 3-year partnership that will see Bentley working with Dezeen to support and inspire the next generation of design talents, as well as champion design excellence and sustainable innovations. We will hear various interpretations of the word luxury in 2023 and consider innovations in biomaterials and fabrication, as well as the role of circularity in the supply chain. So I'm joined by a great panel this morning. At the end here, we have Ilse Crawford. She's the designer and founder of Studioilse in London. Next to her is Chris Cooke, head of Bentley Design Collaborations. Next to him, Monique Zappala is the art creative director at Bentley Home. And next to me is Maurizio Montalti. He's the chairman and co-founder of Sqim. I'm interested in your definition of what luxury means today.
For me, it's something that really exudes quality. I think it needs to be something that is ultimately unique and beautiful. But I think the real key message with what makes a luxury material is human interaction, human investment. But I think ultimately, if it's about emotional expression, it's about engaging in people and getting people to fall in love with something that you're creating, something that means something to them. I think the luxury industry has changed a lot over the years, certainly since I've been kind of working in it. I think it started off quite extrovert. Luxury was an extrovert statement, almost as wealth and a little bit materialistic at times. But I think it's evolved.
I think often when people discuss luxury as though it's a fixed thing, but I mean, that's patently not true. If you look at the historical cycle of luxury, it always starts as a sort of vision of the future, it becomes developed, and then it gets hollowed out. Now, our clients at least, and I would say they are ahead of the curve, whether in commercial or in private, are looking certainly at how to be sustainable. At the same time, they also want it, usually, but not only, to be rather sophisticated.
Luxury, of course, for me is authenticity. So that's the first thing. It has to be real. Luxury has to be real. It's behind people, it's behind materials, it's behind something very different. But to make it different, it has to be real. The Bentley motors, the beautiful materials that they have inside, it was actually interpreting not the car, but what this client wants to live. What can we give? Where can we take them? What can be this journey? So getting out of the car, taking the beauty that was in the car and taking it to a fantastic journey that's home, that's giving him actually the vibe of where a home can be.
For me, luxury in 2023 and hopefully farther, it's about the encounter. It's about the spirit of cooperation. It's about establishing new symbiotic relationships, also at industrial level, with other entities in order to really trigger a positive change.
Let's talk about maybe some of the materials that still dominate, I would say, the high-end luxury market. Monique, how do you protect or prevent the integrity of the luxury market from being eroded?
In first case, it's research. I would say research behind this and the idea of the craftsmanship. This year we worked with a beautiful material with Riccardo Cavacciocchi that's here, that we all have this sample in our hand as well, which is a paper factor. Behind this, there's hands. There's someone that's molding this, that's someone that's having a story. And the beauty that I really fell in love with this material is who's making it, who's actually working with this material.
Could you just explain how it is made?
When I went to go see this beautiful artistic laboratory, and I saw these people actually putting and molding, and it was like they were making dough. It was something amazing. I would just say that I fell in love with this material, that it is celluloise, that it is something that his family, actually his mother, was restoring and using this very antique, where it starts in the south of Italy.
It's called paper marble.
The process is quite simple on the way how we finalize it, because we don't have emissions. The majority is on is a cold process, which we are trying always to push more, because of course we are involved in more process and more, let's say, materials coming, or cellulose fibers, let's say, coming from post-consumer, post-industrial, which is construction, food. So there is always an alchemy between, wood and food, and we create always new, let's say, formulas with new ingredients.
There's been a lot of reference to the hand, of course, but I was wondering maybe if we consider some of the newer digital technologies, fabrication technologies that are now available, how is that moving the story on? Chris?
I think that you need to have a balance between things that are very precise and also things that are very beautiful. I think, it's also nice when you also see little kind of imperfections in final surfaces, because they've been made by hand and by love. But I think, future technologies, and in terms of digitalization, one thing is that we can be more precise with the surfaces we're creating. That helps us in terms of, that saves us a bit more time in terms of developing surfaces moving forward. We were seeing a rise, certainly over the last few years, of new technologies coming forward that are linked to digital. So for things like 3D printing, for example, 3D printing isn't really a luxury manufacturing process. People 3D print in their bedrooms now. But what's really interesting about the shift to that kind of dynamic is that it changes the onus from the craft being involved in the manufacturing process, which is more traditional, to the craft being involved in the digital process. Because that level of craft, that level of digital creation is still a form of craft. To create these kind of crazy and really exciting structures that you can with 3D printing, you have to end up, we've done it a few times, but we've had to write algorithms to actually create these surfaces, and again, it's not easy. It's a form of craftsmanship. So I think that's a very exciting kind of avenue to move down, and I think that's something that the luxury industry will continue to investigate in.
How do you feel like some of those brands are responding to the population's kind of increasing awareness and indeed concern of their ecological footprint?
We can go back to the very ever-used and strongly misused term bio, the suffix bio, which tends to confuse every single body, because nowadays nobody knows anymore what does it mean that something is biological, bio-based, biodegradable, or there are a lot of definitions that tend to create a lot of confusion. And this is also the case within the brands.
In a lot of our projects, we work with smaller suppliers where we have visible supply chains. And that's, I think, where things get really fascinating, because it's a constant reminder of how we've, basically the commodification of everything for the last few hundred years when we talk about noble materials. But every material is noble. All materials can be beautiful if they are looked at differently, if they are touched by the hand, if the skill is there. It's what we do with them that makes the difference.
And I'd love you to talk about what the work that you're doing. You're dealing with really the origin of things, the origin of life, which is, of course, mycelium, where we all and everything comes from.
Let's start from the point of view of where do things originate from? The soil. So what you're looking at here is essentially 100% mycelium of a specific species and strain that has formed a mat. It's a little bit of a dense mat, and we can pass it around. So what we do is actually, again, guiding the growth of the fungus, allowing it to structure a material that is 100% natural, 100% biodegradable, and yet extremely consistent. We form these materials through, again, different custom-made fermenters, and eventually we subject them to treatments rooted in green chemistry, where we stabilize and eventually, whether needed, enrich the materials in order to become, now here you have some different examples, to become something like this, which are materials that can be fully usable. The value of imperfection, the value of uniqueness of every single piece being consistent in terms of technical and experiential properties, but unique in terms of also the look, for instance.
The value of imperfection. I love that. And I think that leads really nicely on to Ilse, because that's something that I feel you celebrate a lot in the work that you do.
And I think we are collectively pretty clueless about materials and how they arrive in our world. about wool. It's usually bleached and then dyed a natural colour so that you get the standardised product that everybody, the market, demands, which is clearly bonkers. We said, OK, let's ask the producers what they would love to work with, the producers of these carpets. And it was really interesting. It boiled down very simply to no bleach, no dye, locally sourced and hand spun. If you want to say there's a downside, is it's not perfect. It wasn't an instant thing. For people to recognise that while they would choose a sample in New York, let's say, the carpet when it arrived might be slightly different, because guess what? The sheep was different. The place they lived was different. And we can't let go of this idea of control, actually.
It smells wonderful. How do you respond to that notion of perfection and consistency?
It's two sides of the leather.
Yeah.
I remember some vases that were, actually we still have them, that were made in Murano, and of course they're blown by mouth, and some clients said, but they're not perfect, and there's bubbles, and it was really difficult to say, do you really know how this is made? Because how can this be the same? Why does something have to be so perfect? But it is the huge challenge.
Client will see maybe a piece of stitching, and you'll see a slight wobble in one of the stitches, and they say that's not perfect. And you have to say that, you know, the reason that's not perfect is because someone's made that. Someone who has taken years to learn their craft has put their heart and soul into that, and they've made that little wobble, and that imperfection is how you can tell.
And then what about sort of skepticism around longevity and durability, certainly within the car market, I would imagine?
The automotive industry is just famous for the stringent level of testing that goes into any material that's selected. I mean, there's just it takes years to get a material from, okay, that looks interesting, could we use that, down to it's in a production line and it's being moved into a customer's home. And we lose a lot of materials that way, and we lose a lot of the creativity that way. What's really nice about the fact that we are a lifestyle brand, and the fact that we have the ability to work outside of automotive so well and so creatively, perhaps we can lead the automotive industry on some of the things that we're creating.
When we see a piece, when we design a piece together, when we choose the materials, it always has to aim at the end that it has to be Bentley. So even if we are looking in new materials that can't go inside of a car, it's a little bit like our collection. It's not living inside of a car, it's out of the car. So that's when it's named Bentley. So it's our product.
The point is, what is the trade-off that you are able to go through? What kind of compromise, that always sounds like a dirty word, are you able to embrace without completely jeopardizing the origin of your initiative?
Some of you might have some questions you'd like to ask.
So if everybody's looking and striving for perfect, how do you brand imperfection?
We go back to Ricardo, you know, what you're creating with the paper marble. This is all done by hand by a craftsman, and every single panel is completely unique to you. You own the only one that looks exactly like that, and that's so special.
Yeah. How do you see it happening around you, this change in production processes that will have to be different in the future?
People keep talking most of the times about materials which are zero impact or that are even carbon negative, and they can exist, but mostly often every process embeds energy. There is energy everywhere, and that is why no matter also when you obtain a material that could be truly responsible, also when discarded, there is no justification for you to keep perpetrating, in this case as a user, that limited approach that has to do with getting rid of things just to move on and getting more. Again, it's like natural doesn't mean, it's not a justification for keeping perpetrating a cultural approach that brought us to the stage where we are today.
I think this conversation could go on all day, and I wish it could. It's been really fantastic to talk to the four of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please put your hands together for a wonderful panel. Thank you.